So here's the thing. Most tech founders think their biggest problem is just getting more leads. And while that may be true, the actual bigger problem that's holding 99% of tech firms back is predictability, or more specifically, the lack of it. For example, 1 month, your pipeline is probably flooded with new referrals, new leads coming in, you're having great conversations, everything feels like it's working, you're on top of the world. The next month, it's dead quiet. And it's not that the market has changed. It's not that your product all of a sudden just stopped being good. It's that you don't have a system for how those leads are coming in. And so what I want to do in today's video is break down what causes unpredictability in most tech firms that we speak to and what you can do to fix it and the 3 different levers that you have to pull within your business to gain that predictability. So let's dive into things and I'll talk through the real reason as to why most tech firms are living by this inconsistency. It's because of the fact that most tech firms rely on referrals, word of mouth, just maybe different ad bursts, or just random outbound. Now, these things can work. I'm not saying that you can't scale your business using referrals or word of mouth. It's a great way to grow and it's a great channel. However, it's not scalable. And that's the issue with a lot of the tech firms that we speak to is that they've hit this revenue ceiling. They've gotten to $1 million and maybe $2, $3, $5 million in annual revenue. But in order to get to that next level, they can't just keep asking for more referrals. And they don't really have a system in place that they know that if they put, for example, X amount in, they can get X amount out. And that is the most important thing that you have to build in your business is knowing if I put $5 into this system, it will generate me back $30 or $50 because then you can start to forecast revenue, right? The biggest issue is that you can't forecast revenue right now. You don't know how much you need to spend in order to get to the revenue targets that you're looking to get. And it's more just preying off of hope. You have hopium that you're going to hit these targets, not having an actual system. Once you have an actual system, right? You can start to forecast your revenue. You say, I know that I need 27 calls this month to get 3 deals. And I need 3 deals every single month at this rate to hit this target. So you can start to break down the targets that you want to get to systematically. So how do you get to this level of predictability? You have to build what I call 3 levers of predictability inside of your business in order to get to this. Now, the first thing that you have to do, and I know it's going to sound counterintuitive, right, is that you have to niche down. And that is because if you are trying to be everything to everyone, that is the quickest way that you will never be able to scale with outbound or paid ads or inbound because it's such a crowded market right now. Think about how many competitors that you have in your space. The only way to stand out is by niching down to a specific industry or by niching down into a specific problem that your product solves. Now, ideally, if you can actually do both of these, now you're hyper niche. The issue is you don't want to go too niche to where there's not enough people to go after. You need at least what I typically say around 10,000 companies, right, in that specific industry to go after and to build a good business on. Now you can have less. You only need, at the end of the day, 1% of the market, depending on how big your average deal size is. But the biggest thing that we want to be able to do is understand who do we serve, why do we serve them, and why are we the best fit in the option for them? Once you've understood that specific niche that you're going to go after, the second thing that is so important that so many firms miss, and I can't reiterate how many times I see this talking to people, is that they are trying to offer services, a list of services, instead of building an offer. Now, if you're trying to sell through cold outbound or you're trying to sell on ads specifically, you may be able to get away with this if you're doing a little bit more content, but even then, this works really well if you have a content system, is that you need to have a clear front-end offer. Now, let me give you some examples of what a front-end offer looks like because you may be thinking, I'm not really sure what that means specifically. People hear the word, but they don't know what it actually means. So if I'm a custom dev shop, right? Instead of saying like, hey, I can offer you custom software solutions, I'm basically whatever you need, I can offer it, right? That is the worst way to go out to the market with a message. Instead, what you want to say is, hey, we'll help you implement your AI use case into production within 6 weeks, right? Do you have an AI idea that you want to implement inside your business? Here's how we can help. If I'm an AI SaaS or a SaaS product, instead of saying, hey, that we're just this generalized SaaS, we're going to say, hey, this is what our SaaS does. We eliminate manual data labeling by 80% in 30 days with our workflow engine, right? So I'm giving you generalized examples so you understand the point. These are called offer statements or front-end offers. And what you want to be able to do with these front-end offer is you want to be able to connect with that industry or niche that you figured out what it is or that you figured out who it is that you serve the best. And so the biggest thing that you want to take away from this is that what can I offer to my industry or my niche that they are going to take me up on it and I can instantly build trust with them? Like, for example, just using my company, I am a growth company that works specifically within the AI and tech space. So I don't work with other companies. All of my marketing efforts, all of my positioning, all of my content, all of my paid ads is all geared towards an AI and tech space because I want to be a specialist, which makes it easier for me to generate more leads predictably because people see me as the go-to expert. And what you want to be able to do in your niche is be that go-to market expert, whether that's through a manual problem or whether that's through a problem that you're solving or through an industry that you're solving problems for. So that's the number one thing, is figuring out the niche, figuring out the offer. Second thing is you want to start to systematize your lead sources and understanding that you need to track everything, right? Relying on one source is going to create multiple bottlenecks within your business, right? Like referrals can't be your only lead source. Paid ads, now I'm a paid ads guy. We use paid ads to grow our business, and I think that paid ads are great for clients. That also shouldn't be your only lead source. And outbound, it also shouldn't be your only lead source. You should have at least 2 lead sources so that when one goes down, you have another one that you can know brings in predictability. Now, the beautiful thing about paid ads is that it is very scalable and it's very easy to understand how much that you need to put in and actually how much you can get out as a result of it, right? It's a lot easier to do that than with outbound, for example. You can do that with outbound. It just is a little bit harder to see. It's not one-to-one always. So what you want to first do is you want to find 2 to 3 consistent channels. Now, what I recommend doing is blending 2 consistent channels, right? You want to either do paid and outbound or paid and content. I think that these are great ways to kind of pair up. I think that if you are doing content, it's only going to help with your other efforts. It may not be the main source of lead generation for you, but it's going to help you build trust with your market, and people are going to understand what it is that you do. And once they look you up, when you do paid or you do outbound, you have content that is there. The second thing that you're going to want to do is once you pick the 2 channels that you want to go with, is you want to track your time and money ROI per channel. So for example, if you're doing outbound and you are cold calling, let's just say once every day, you're cold calling for an hour a day. You want to track how long it takes to get a meeting out of that hour. So for example, if I book 1 meeting from that hour of cold calling that I'm doing, and I spend 5 hours a week and I can book 5 meetings, now I know that I can book a meeting in an hour, which I can now translate into also ROI. Right? Because how much is my time worth, right? And then based upon how much my time is worth, I know that if I get 1 hour and I can book 1 meeting, now I know my ROI on that channel. And so what you can start to do is understand the ROI across multiple channels to figure out which channel is the best channel for you. So now you know that if, okay, for example, if I'm running paid ads, I know that if I'm spending $5 on that channel, right? And I'm making $20 as a return, now I know my ROAS is 4x, right? So what you want to be able to start to do is understand what your cost per call is on all of your channels. Now, it may be harder with outbound because you may be thinking, okay, well, it's me doing it or it's my team doing it, but it's a lot easier actually if you have an SDR or if you have a sales guy. And how you can calculate that is how long it takes for your SDR to book a call and how much you pay them. And if you understand how much you pay them and how long it takes for them to book a call, now you can start to calculate your cost per qualified book call. Now, once you have your cost per qualified book call, right, and you understand what those metrics are on those channels, now you want to understand what your close rate per channel is so that you can start to track these different metrics and understand these different metrics so that you can now start to understand what is your ROI. And then once you understand what your ROI on these channels are, you can then start to say, okay, well, if I want to scale these channels, I know that if I put X amount in, I can expect to get X amount out. And that's the beauty about knowing your numbers. So many clients that we talk to don't understand their numbers. They're not understanding what it is that they're actually putting in. And yes, you can track these numbers even with outbound or content, for example. Content you can also track based upon time and effort that you're putting into that. And that is the number one thing that will start to give you clarity on which systems are working. Now, with referrals, you can do this too. You should do this. The issue is with referrals, it's a lot harder to do more volume of referrals. I mean, you can obviously ask for more referrals from your clients. The issue is there's a finite amount that you can ask for, right? With outbound, you can continue to do more outbound. With paid ads, you can continue to spend more. With content, you can continue to make more videos or more content. So referrals are a little bit harder to do just because of the fact you can't continue to ask for more referrals because at some point your clients aren't going to give you any more referrals or they'll probably get annoyed with you. So the biggest thing that you want to be able to find out is how much does $1 produce me? And if you can start to understand your ROAS per each channel, then you have a system. And as a founder, one of the biggest things that I always want to do myself, and what I always recommend our clients to do, is to use the system and test the system yourself. So you want to be able to be inside the system. For example, if you're starting paid ads, you should be the one that's taking those calls for those paid ads. You should be the one that's following up with leads. If you're doing outbound to begin with, right? You're telling your SDR to start cold calling. You should prove that channel out by cold calling yourself, building a script, building a process, right? Because then you can delegate that a lot easier, and founder validated systems can scale 10x better. Now, in most cases, I understand that you don't like sales, or if you're a tech firm CEO, a lot of times you don't really maybe enjoy marketing, but these are integral parts that you have to learn within your business in order to scale them. Because the issue is, in order to find someone that is going to build out, the sales systems for you is going to cost you a lot of money. And if you're bootstrapped, right, and you're trying to grow your business and you're in that, $1 to $5 million range, you can't always afford someone that is really good to build out those processes for you. So your best bet is being able to learn more about sales, learn more about how to be in those conversations so that you can start to build the processes yourself. Okay. So now once you've actually systematized your lead sources, the next step is engineering your sales process, like I was mentioning. Now, the biggest thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to scale chaos, right? That is going to set you up for failure, and it's ultimately not going to give you a good foundation. So the biggest thing I always relay this back to is like a leaky bucket. If you fill a bucket with a whole bunch of water and you got a whole bunch of holes in it, right, you're going to struggle having to fill that bucket more and more and more and more. And so the biggest thing with sales is that maybe you get leads in, but you're not converting them at the right rate, or you don't have a system in your sales process, right? So once we understand that we systematize the lead generation side of things, how do we systematize the sales part of things? Now, the reason why most founders don't systematize the sales is because typically the founders are better at selling than most of the salespeople that they bring on. It's because they know their product really well. They've built it in most cases. They've either started the company themselves, so they have that conviction. And so it's going to be hard for you to just tell someone to say, hey, sell like I do. So what instead you have to do is you have to build out a predictable system that you can start giving to your sales reps. So how do you build out this system? Now, there's a couple of quick things that I want to mention here. I can create a whole separate video on this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But the biggest thing that you want to do is lead with your front end offer. Now, I see so many times where tech firms or people that we even work with sometimes, they'll try to sell a $500,000 deal or $1 million deal right off the bat. And not to say that you can't do this. The issue is that what happens when you try to sell a $500,000 deal off the bat is that your sales cycle, first of all, is going to increase. It's going to be a lot harder to close a $500,000 deal versus a $50,000 deal. And the second thing is that it's also going to give you latency in terms of sales velocity. And what sales velocity is how quickly those deals close so that you can actually invest back into the marketing. So sometimes it's actually better to close a smaller deal so that you can get your foot into the door. So you get your foot in the door, and then you can upsell into that $500,000 deal, $1 million deal once you've built that trust. And so my biggest thing that I always reiterate with these enterprise style contracts, or even with, with getting your foot into the door with audits or different, value adds that you can first start with, is you start small, right? Don't always go for the home run. And I'm not saying you can't go for the home run, but I'm saying if you want to build a predictable system, especially for, sales reps, it's always good to start with something that you can kind of lead in with. Second thing is you want to build out assets. Sales assets, not marketing assets, sales assets. So what are you doing in terms of before someone hops a call? Are you sending them over what you guys do? Are you sending them over a quick explainer video? Are you sending them over case studies, right? What are you doing after you hop off the discovery call? What's happening in between that part? What are you using in terms of sales decks? What does your proposals look like, right? So you have to have specific processes within your sales to know exactly what it is that you do at each stage. I can't tell you how many times I talk to founders and they don't have this built out, right? And I understand why. It's because you've grown the business yourself, but in order to get to that next level, you have to start documenting these things. You have to start building out a process for each of these individual steps. The most important thing that you do after you build out those assets is you need to track every single metric. You need to be obsessed with metrics because metrics will tell you where the problem is. So for example, show rate. And this is super important, show rate, when you're doing outbound or you're doing paid ads. It's not as much of an issue when you're doing referrals. You don't have to worry about show rate. The second thing you have to calculate is, for example, from call to discovery to proposal, what's that rate, right? And then what is the drop-off rate from discovery to proposal? Then from proposal to close, what is that rate? And then understanding what your overall close rate on a qualified lead that comes in. And the most valuable metric that you can track that so many people don't track is the reason why you lost the deal. I can't tell you how much gold is in that. If you literally go to your prospects and you ask them, say, hey, yeah, that's not a problem that you didn't go with us. Can I ask what you ended up doing, right? What that allows you to do is understand what they ended up doing about that situation. If they went with your competitor of yours or why they didn't buy from you, so that you can get this information and start to see what objections you're getting a lot of. Are you getting a lot of price objections? Are you getting a lot of, value objections? What type of objections are you getting so that you can start to understand, how do I position my product to be different, right? And actually pre-handle a lot of these objections. So the biggest takeaway from that is you can't optimize what you don't measure, and you can't scale what you don't systematize. So just to give you a quick recap, right? The real bottleneck isn't leads, it's predictability, right? And predictability gives you the confidence to hire, to plan, to reinvest, to give you the roadmap of what it looks like to scale. Once you have a predictable acquisition system, it blows your mind. You're like, oh, wow, I can actually scale my business. I know how much money I have to put in to scale my business. And so the three things that you need to focus on in order to scale your business is niching down, right? Understanding who you serve and why you serve them. What's your competitive advantage? How can you position yourself differently? The second thing is systematizing how leads flow in. Which channels are going to work best for you, right? And understanding those channels. The third thing is engineering a sales process. So what does that sales process look like? How can you track every single metric? Be obsessed with the different metrics that you want to be able to go ahead and implement. Now, if you are looking at this and you're looking for some help in terms of how to implement these three different levers, go ahead and book a call and go in the description and click on the link to book a call with myself. I'm Alessandro Cucci, one of the founders over here at TechSuasive, where we actually help build these three levers within your tech firm, specifically B2B tech firms. And if you ever need any help or you have any other questions for me, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to share things with you. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe for more content. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take it easy. Ciao.